Welcome to Sustainability for Sinners, one of the most, if not the most, controversial podcasts in town. It pushes back against fake solutions, corporate-led interests, and the so-called green technologies that often do more harm than good. With dark humour and honesty, it gives voice to people who are usually misrepresented, ignored, or just don't fit the mainstream narrative. It's about giving power back to ordinary people, from communities to farmers to activists to anyone that's sincerely trying to make this world more sustainable and from the ground up. What you're definitely not going to hear are recycled talking points from government press releases or the corporate media. What you will hear may be uncomfortable or even shocking at first because it's from people on the scent to a better way of living that aren't dictated by corporations and corrupted institutions. This podcast explores how we can change things both locally and globally to tackle environmental issues head on, while at the same time improving the quality of all our lives. It's controversial, it's unapologetic, it's stubbornly optimistic, it's non-judgmental. I promise there's a lot to be gained, so please keep an open mind and enjoy the show. And if you do, please share, like, subscribe, follow, leave a rating, spread the word. All of these things help. Thank you very much.
Making money is fine, but it's nauseating that they pretend that they're doing it to save the planet and
It's
the growing global
signaling.
population. It is.
Yeah. He says a farm-free world is what Mombeo hopes to see, where everyone enjoys farm-free food. We can now contemplate the end of most farming. This is his quote. We can now contemplate the end of most farming, the most destructive force ever to have been unleashed by humans.
Just extraordinary.
To this end,
how have we survived for this? Tens of thousands of years.
Oh,
what idiots we are.
The evolution.
So before they wanted to save our souls, now they want to save the planet. Apparently by blaming cows, which itself is kind of weirdly religious, isn't it? Really, we're going to take these cows. There's a sacrificial.
Sacrifice the cows.
They can sacrifice them, and then the gods will be pleased.
Mombeo's thought process as well, that would be the idea.
Does he have thought processes? I have to say I've never noticed that, but carry on.
That's a silly assumption on my behalf. But
I used to think he did, but the more I read of his stuff, the more I began to doubt it. I could be completely wrong, of course, and he may actually be a giant intellectually, and I'm just a dwarf. But let's carry on. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, always stay humble, Julian. You might not.
Absolutely. What do I know? I know nothing. Once you move beyond that to big bold claims like we're going to replace dairy, we're going to replace cheese, we're going to replace meat, then you're wandering into a world of fantasy. Technological fantasy and fantasy when it comes to understanding the consumer as well.
Makers in the animal-free proteins need to hold themselves to the same standards as everyone else in the food industry. And until they do, no one with an ounce of wisdom is going to touch these things or should touch these things, either as an ingredient if you're a food processor or if you're a consumer and it's the thing you pull off the shelf.
The whole alt protein world, one of the things they try to do to give themselves this kind of gloss of being good people is they say, well, with the world population increasing to 8 billion, we want to feed people.
We got it. Hello, friends. Today's guest is Julian Mellentin, a world expert in food, health and nutrition. I had a great time with him. We talked about a lot of different things, and he's a real breath of fresh air with his expertise and knowledge and boldness to say what he really thinks about things. So I was very impressed, and I hope you will be too. I'm sure you will, because he is such an exciting character. And we need more people like him in the world that are rational and optimistic and well-intentioned and see things and can cut through the BS. So this was a very fun one to do. So I hope you enjoy. All the best. Take care. Bye. Beautiful.
Always makes me cheerful. Okay,
Julian.
Ready to go?
Ready to go. Welcome. I'm delighted you're on. And maybe you could introduce yourself first before we lay into it.
Sure. So my name is Julian Mellentin. I run a company called New Nutrition Business. We've been going for a very long time, 25 plus years, and we're specialists in the business of food, nutrition, and health. And you probably guessed by my accent where I'm from, but I work on the basis that one
French.
Englishman.
No.
Yeah, well, actually,
Sorry.
my name is French, in fact.
All
Yeah, I come
right.
from a
Sorry.
weird mongrel family, so I've got relatives in Germany. My name is French.
Same. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. um, and yeah, so we're specialists in food, nutrition, and health, that which means that we help companies figure out what the right things are to do in nutrition and health. And we have standards. There are some companies we really don't work with because our
Hmm.
standards don't align with theirs. And people that use our information one of two ways. They can go to our website, which is www.new-nutrition.com, and then a company will take out a license to access all the information on our website that helps them think through their strategy in nutrition and health. Or people come to us and ask us to do consulting projects or webinars or workshops and seminars and things. And the business is divided between the two. And as I said,
Yeah.
I'm the only Englishman. My team, which is very small, but we're lots of different nationalities, New Zealanders, Japanese, Korean, South African about to start, Ukrainian, Swedish, Portuguese, Croatian, Dutch, Iraqi, and American. And that it was,
And no Irish, Julian.
Sadly not. No, I apologize for
Oh.
that. Let's see
But
if
you
we can
seem to have
remedy that
every other
one day.
country in the world.
Well, we have several customers in Ireland. I have to say they're delightful to deal with.
Oh, lovely.
It's a thing I've noticed actually is all my career, I was a marketer and a food marketer before I started this business. Um, is noticing the different cultures and how people approach business. So I thoroughly
Right.
enjoy the way that, say, Japanese, Australians, Americans, New Zealanders, and the
Yeah.
Irish do business. And I like
Lovely.
how Irish people in business are very open-minded and very inquiring,
Yeah.
and they are good at challenging themselves, and they like
Good.
information that makes them think. And you don't find that in other countries. I have to say, as
Really?
an Englishman, I find
Wow.
the English are very bad like that. The English
Okay.
and the Germans, so I can insult both of those nationalities, as I have relatives in both of those countries.
I was born in Germany, so I slag it
Okay.
off just as much as I slag Irish people off and everything.
Very good. Well
And
known German name,
I've heard
O'Connor.
all the jokes in school, so the water off a duck's back, you know?
Well,
Um,
the English
yeah.
and the Germans share the common character. They share many common characteristics, but one
Right.
is a tad unwilling to inquire and tend to assume that they know
Uh-huh.
best, which is really
Interesting.
annoying. I'd rather deal with Japanese or Kiwis or Australians or Irish
Yeah,
or
yeah,
Swedes. Yeah.
yeah.
And French
Cool.
people too. French is my second language. You do a lot of business there. And French
Okay.
people are
Yeah.
also open to discussion and inquiry and
Right.
looking at
That's
different things.
good. Yeah. I mean,
Sorry, that was
hey,
too long. Sorry for that.
no, it was perfect. It was perfect. Yeah, I mean, critical thinking and just asking why a lot is very important right now, isn't it?
This is.
And we're in the age of, well, there's just BS all around us as well. Like everyone's kind of used to it, that there's
Mhm.
whatever product you're looking at on an advert or the packaging, it's got a lot of promises to it. And a lot of it, we're used to not actually, we're, c- we know we know it's kind of, um, overhyped or there might be truth to it, but we're all used to it at this stage that it's
Mm,
all around us, right?
mm,
Um, which actually makes me kind of think of one thing that I wrote down, and oh yeah, it's the promise of um, products that use precision fermentation, or sorry, alternative to meat and dairy proteins,
mhm.
um, and the promise they've given, and how you broke it down in your fine podcast of I. Do you mind if I read this out to you, Julian?
No,
And
please do.
you'll
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Read my words
because
back to me and
I'm
see if I agree
yeah
with
yeah
them.
yeah. Well,
See
let's
if I
see
was
if I
wrong.
can. I wrote this in my chicken scratch writing, so I don't know. Bear with me here,
Sure.
but so so basically, it's the animal-free dairy proteins, and you posed the question, what if those claimed benefits are not proven? What if there's no evidence? What's the difference? The important takeaway is that these proteins at the molecular level are not identical in how they interact with our biology. To note, the researchers aren't saying that the lab-grown meats are unsafe, but what they do say is that it behaves differently in our bodies. Um, as of January 2024, there was research, or you looked into the research, and as
We
of
did.
January 2024, you found there was no research on the effects of animal-free dairy proteins produced by precision fermentation on human health. So the claims that the companies are making about being nutritionally equivalent are basically taking a leap from the nutritional value of the original animal source protein and saying, yeah, it's exactly the same as ours.
Yes, it's
Now,
exactly
you're
what they do.
right. And then your colleague called as many companies as she could. She has a background in
Yep,
agriculture and
yep,
food
yep.
production. So she called as many companies as she could to ask them, is there any research that perhaps you've got that isn't in the public domain? And no one was able to answer her question.
Correct.
So they assert that their products are identical to those from dairy. They say at the molecular level they are the same, but there is this big problem. There's no peer-reviewed, randomized clinical trials that show how they perform in the human body. Over the last 30 years, producers of natural proteins, meaning meat, dairy, soy, chickpeas, anything that grows naturally, essentially, they've been studying, researching, and investigating how their proteins perform in the human body. We now have a lot of that knowledge, and it is the responsible thing to do. And the makers of the lab-made dairy proteins, um, as far as we can see, haven't set off down that path yet. So it sounds like they have a job to do. Um, no, these are my words, sorry. But it sounds like they have a job to do, don't they, Julian?
Yes,
That they should probably start doing the research on this, and run some human studies in the public domain, peer reviewed, just like everyone else who's in the protein business has been doing, to show that their proteins truly do perform the same in the human body as the proteins they're designed to replace. And the big question is, oh, you posed the question, if you're a food producer, why would you adopt a protein where you can't be sure that you can legitimately claim that it does the same thing? And if you're a consumer, why would you consume a product that cannot prove clearly through a randomized clinical study that it does the same thing? Sorry. Makers
that's
in the
right.
animal-free proteins need to hold themselves to the same standards as everyone else in the food industry. And until they do, no one with an ounce of wisdom is going to touch these things or should touch these things, either as an ingredient if you're a food processor or if you're a consumer and it's the thing you pull off the shelf. Does that make sense to you, what you just said to me?
Yeah, thank you. It's great. I
Yeah,
didn't know the podcast was that good.
it's very good. These are
Thank
the
you.
breath of fresh airs that, you're kind of like, I want to there's nothing to grab onto, and then someone like you actually goes and does the critical thinking around it. And I love speaking to people that have done that kind of just what ifs.
Yeah,
What you're going at it in a logical way. It's not an
good.
aggressive way. You're
Oh
looking
no,
at how the whey proteins and all of this stuff is um constantly analyzed and shown how it interacts with our bodies. And then all of a sudden, this new kid on the block decides to come about,
right,
promises to be very sustainable, um, and can replace everything, and but isn't doing the homework on if it actually works for us,
correct. That's right.
and we
One of
should
the
be
reasons
allowed
for
to
that.
ask these questions,
Oh yeah,
you
yeah.
know?
I mean, I'm fairly confident we're the only people who asked it. We gave all the
Right.
companies an opportunity to say, tell us if there was something that we didn't know about, and no one could. Um, and I think a lot of it comes down to shareholders, because if you do these kinds of studies, they are expensive. They're going to cost some millions.
Uh-huh.
So the shareholders, who are mostly financial organizations, they just
Yes.
don't want to do that level of expenditure because they've thrown a lot of money so far at lots
Yeah.
of startup companies doing this,
Hmm.
and they've invested in scientists and swanky buildings and lots of stainless steel, tanks to brew things in. And then you come along
Yeah.
and say, but you still need to spend 5 million before you go to market.
Oh
And they
wow.
prefer not, I think they just prefer not to hear it.
Okay.
Um, my problem, I'm going to be not quite so polite now. Over the years, particularly from like 2010 to 2020,
Hmm.
when lots of investor money was being poured into alternative proteins, like alternative dairy and alternative meat,
Yeah.
we would be asked to go along and to participate in a meeting with an investment group to answer questions about the alternative protein market. And
Yeah.
we always keep an open mind about things. But what we did warn people is that they were probably going to be burning their money.
Okay.
We did that for the first time in 2017. I'm on the record in public saying that in 2019. There's an interview in Food Navigator. And essentially what I said was all of these investors are going to be disappointed because the market for their stuff is going to be much smaller than they
Yeah.
all think. And
Mm.
they were basically just swallowing whatever they read in the media, like, oh,
The hype.
plant-based. The hype, it's going to
Yeah.
replace 30% of livestock by
Yeah.
2030 and all that kind of stuff. Sadly, a lot of people in the food industry picked up and followed that. I feel a bit sorry for them. Some people have to, because if your boss has just swallowed it hook, line, and sinker,
Yeah.
kind of hard to disagree with them.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, the interesting thing is when you actually say to them, well, here are the technological challenges you're going to face. And then beyond that, here are the consumer challenges.
Hmm.
They look at you. I don't think you've ever seen a TV program called Downton Abbey.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, and there's Lord Grantham or whatever. Sometimes you're left sitting there feeling like the gardener, and Lord Grantham has come in and said, I want to grow palm trees on the lawn here in Yorkshire. And you say, I'm very sorry, my lord, but palm trees won't grow
I'm
on the lawn.
sorry.
Only very small palm trees, possibly.
Yeah.
And he
Yeah.
looks at
Yeah.
you like, who is this peasant telling me something that I don't want to hear?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that kind of, I am the gardener
Killing
on
their
Downton
dreams,
Abbey
Julian.
thing.
You're
I
killing their
know.
dreams.
Look,
And their
the thing is
dreams
actually
are
trying to
also
save
involved
their
with
dreams.
finances as
Let
well.
them
So
keep their money in their pocket, instead of
yeah.
burning
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yes, you get that kind of, used to get that kind of thing a lot. That's dropped off, I'm pleased to say, because they've now
Yeah.
all had their fingers burnt so comprehensively
Uh,
that they're not willing to put the money in. So sometimes you
mm,
see in the media comments like, "Oh, the alternative protein people, there's a bit of a drought of investment at the moment,"
hmm.
and they say, "Oh, this is because of misinformation in the press or by the meat industry." You think the meat industry is doing this? Do you know how little money the meat industry has? The meat industry can't afford lots of PR. Um, and what
Yeah.
they are unwilling to accept is that so many investors have had their fingers burnt. They're thinking very carefully before they go
Yes.
down that route again.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
at the moment, on average, one company who makes alternative proteins is going out of business every 4 weeks. Somewhere in the world, one folds every 4 weeks.
Wow.
It's even worse than
Wow.
we predicted. We said to our customers, this is going to be a niche.
Yeah.
So maybe we thought plant-based proteins, they might get like 3 to 5% market share because it is
Mm.
a fact consumers' beliefs about food and health are diverse
Hmm.
and there's a niche for everything. But in fact, even in America, it's only 1% and it's
Yeah.
about to drop below 1% because that tiny market they're created is now
It's struggling.
declining.
Yeah.
And this wasn't rocket science. We
Mm.
spoke to people in the world of technology who had lots of experience fermenting and creating proteins, so chemical engineers and food scientists. And they were going, yeah, don't think this technology is really going to do what they think, not at the scale, not
Wow.
at the cost.
So
And
even the
then,
producers themselves, the ones
yes,
using the technology are saying to the, yeah,
yeah,
wow,
well, let
wow.
me give you an example. So there's a company in Japan called Ajinomoto, and they are superb at fermentation. And
Hmm.
they have been fermenting things, usually for like pharmaceutical applications, since the 1970s. So if you speak to people in our world, they say, yeah, Ajinomoto, they really know what they're doing.
Hmm.
But no one asked the question, if Ajinomoto, who knows more about fermentation than anyone else, if they're not doing it, why is that? Because they're
Yeah.
commercially a very astute company.
Yeah.
And the fact is, the economics don't stack up. You can't get the volume at the scale that you
Scalability.
need to
Yeah.
have to get the low price that you need to be in the real world.
Yeah.
And there's no evidence of consumer acceptance. In fact, what little consumer
Yeah.
research there is shows that consumers are really a bit turned off by the idea. Um,
Yeah.
so
Interesting.
fermentation has its uses. So there is something to be said for using fermentation to produce some ingredients. I mean, what
Hmm.
we all forget is that rennet that's used in cheese. So you'll see it says
That's right.
vegetarian rennet. That's
Yeah.
produced by fermentation, and that's been produced by fermentation for 25 years or something.
Right.
Um, and it's very expensive. So rennet is you only use a tiny, tiny bit in the product, but if you bought a
Okay.
1 kilo bag, you'd be paying a giant price for it. So There's scope for some things being produced by fermentation, which are niche ingredients.
Right.
So, for example, there's a thing called lactoferrin, which occurs naturally in cow's milk, and there's lots of good science around the immune health benefits.
Mm-hmm.
But to actually extract it from the cow's milk is really expensive. I mean, like,
Okay.
I can't remember what the number is, $20,000 a kilo or something like that. I can't quite remember. Excuse me
Yeah.
for that. Oh, sorry, I'm going to cough now
No
because of
worries.
this cold. So, there's not that you can see a need for that. But once you move beyond that to big bold claims like we're going to replace dairy, we're going to replace cheese, we're going to replace meat,
Well,
then you're wandering into a world of fantasy, technological fantasy and fantasy when it comes to understanding the consumer as well. And it's provided us with massive amounts of amusement. Once we'd
yeah.
stopped scratching our heads and we're just grateful to have money to turn up and say, I'm sorry, mate, this is not going to work. Yeah, I
Well,
told you.
like,
And
well,
now we make money saying, see, we said this wasn't going to work.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And that's why we've
Told
been
you.
around
Yeah,
25
yeah,
years. And our
yeah.
customers, we have a lot of the same customers, but
Mm,
most of our customers have been with us the whole time. And it's
yeah,
because we don't mess about. We
yeah,
we we establish what the facts are,
yeah,
and we either help people avoid making dumb mistakes,
yeah.
or we encourage them to do something, that we think
Very
will
helpful.
work.
That's
Yeah,
very practical. It's a very
sure.
practical business model from you,
It
Julian.
is.
And it's needed. It's
Yeah.
needed. That common sense isn't that common kind of phrase. Like
Yeah.
if you know, it's just doing the homework and thinking about things without a dogma, without something blinding you. You need kind of clear-minded people that aren't fixated on a small thing to just
Yes.
look at the whole thing and also how it interacts with the rest of it.
So
And
true.
you can have reductive thinking of look at this tree, what do you see? Do you see just a tree, or do you see a tree with leaves, bark, branches, how it connects to the soil, the photosynthesis, and everything? Like
Yeah.
there's reductive, and there's really an understanding the processes and systems that are involved, and how it's interacting with everything else. So you're probably looking at this going, yeah, this is not this is not
Yeah.
making too much sense. And sorry to put a dampener on some people's dreams, but it's probably not going to work. And
Yeah. You can
all
either
I've,
listen to my dampness on your dreams, or you can have a total nightmare of having all your money go up in flames. Which do you prefer?
yeah,
Yeah.
hey, and I mean, look at what are the most beyond meat. I had a good discussion with Dr. Frank Mitloiner
Oh,
about
yes.
that,
Yeah.
and
UC Davis in
yeah,
California.
yeah, yeah, we had
He's
good
very
fun.
well respected in terms of
Yes,
understanding
yeah,
cattle and sustainability and all that kind of thing. Yeah.
and
He's,
a kind of a realist, yeah.
it certainly is. Yeah.
Which right now we need kind
Yeah.
of you. We can. I mean, I always say like, I'm a bit of a dreamer. I do have my ideas of
I
where
forgive
the
you.
world could go, but it's about having your feet solidly on the ground and
Yeah.
going
Mm.
from there. Let's
Mm.
do the next steps reasonably and rationally,
Absolutely.
to get us out of the kind of mess we're in. But we had great fun talking about that, and he knows the presidents and CEOs of these companies.
Mm.
And the one had a bold statement of by 2035 there will be no more animal processed
Oh, yeah.
food.
Pat Brown, probably from
Yeah,
Impossible Foods, or
yeah,
something he
yeah,
would say.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then Frank just went, "I bet you a steak."
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Good
I tried
idea.
to control my laughter, but um, he's now the chief visionary officer of either Impossible or the other one. What's the other one?
Beyond Meat.
Beyond Burger.
I think it's
Yeah.
impossible because he used to be the CEO there.
Yeah, but
Um,
the title is hilarious, Chief Visionary Officer.
yeah,
And then Julian Mellentin will come along and ruin the dreams by just like putting it on a thing and going, that's not going to work. It's not scalable in that way, or the
yeah,
energy intensity, or the
yeah.
economic viability, um,
And consumer
and
revulsion.
consumer revulsion. Yeah.
Yeah, I think
And
you made a good point. It is all about dreams. I feel like we've been,
yeah,
um, I don't know how long this has been, but it feels like for the past 15 years, um, as the thinker Thomas Sowell. I don't know if you've come across Thomas Sowell, but I recommend you go and have a look. He's an economist.
yeah,
He's about 90 now. He said, "We seem to have swapped what works for what sounds good." And
Yeah.
that's essentially what a lot of all these things is about. Is people have an idea in their head. Wouldn't it be good if, it's a sort of field
Yeah.
of dreams type thinking. And
Yeah.
there's a place for field of dreams thinking, but not if it's going to burn
Yeah.
billions of people's money and do immense
Yeah,
amounts of
absolutely.
damage. And people
Well,
like Impossible Foods and Beyond, they've been going now for more than 10 years.
uh,
Not once, to my knowledge, certainly Beyond Meat has never made a profit. It has
yeah.
1.3 billion of cumulative losses sitting on its balance sheet. We've been telling our
Damn,
customers
I should have
since,
invested. Sorry.
yeah, um,
Yeah.
and we've been telling our customers since 2022 that it was going to be the biggest failure in food industry history. So we're
Wow.
just waiting for that to complete.
Yeah.
Impossible, I don't
Interesting.
know the detail, but I don't
Uh-huh.
think it's made a profit either.
Right.
Um,
What
and
about,
I think what people forget is all the whole alt protein world. One of the things they try to do to give themselves this kind of gloss of being good people is they say, well, with the world population increasing to 8 billion,
yeah,
we
yeah,
want
yeah.
to feed people.
We gotta.
So the next question you
Yeah.
ask them is, how many facilities do you have in Africa?
Mm-hmm.
Or how many are you planning to open in Africa and when? The answer is, well, they're not doing it in Africa. Africa is
Oh,
going to be half the world's population. That's where all the growth is coming from.
yeah,
Second biggest is
yeah.
India. But what they're really doing is they're setting up their businesses and they're going after premium Western markets to try and displace exactly animal protein to make money. Well, that's
Mm-hmm.
fine. Making money is fine,
Yeah.
but it's nauseating that they pretend that they're doing it to save the planet and
It's the
a growing
virtue
global
signaling.
population. It is.
Yeah.
That's exactly the
And I was
phrase
just
for it.
talking to Kate Mason, the investigative journalist from Australia, about, UN 2030 goals and everything. And she said the one thing that is toughest is the incessant virtue signaling that
Mm,
is just, we're such good people, we're saving the world. Don't think about anything, we've got this.
yeah.
And and like if you're around this stuff long enough, you know that there's some dodgy or not very sincere intentions behind a lot of this. And basically, it's all money. It's
Yeah.
basically financial stuff. I have an investment manager background. Um, Unfortunately or fortunately, I have been trained to look at things from a financial lens, and later on did my master's in sustainable environments and a few other qualifications in agriculture, and now I'm trying to fit it all together. And this is one thing that I always think. Um, the classic environmentalist, um, like say my family would have grown up going, the people that are doing the ecological destruction and whatever, they don't appreciate or understand the systems they're destroying in nature. They don't
Mm.
get it. It's very sacred and it's just been annihilated. And it's millions of years of evolution that came this far. And where I would, so they're saying the financial people don't get it, the destruction they're doing. Where I would say, if the classic environmentalist or people who care about the environment and protecting it, if they don't understand the financial side, then they don't understand what they're spinning. The
It's true. Yeah.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
So we need to be aware of the why. Why are we being told the 51% emissions from cattle? Like it feels like none of these things were by accident. We're funneled into certain ways of thinking. Um, so yeah, I have a quite a strong financial lens on things,
Mm,
and you obviously do too. You're
mm,
putting a lot of things together. Um, Human health and nutrition, um, scalability, economic viability, and the impact it has on probably animals and the environment.
mm.
Taking the full thing and not just a focus on emissions, as if that's the
Yeah.
that's the
Yeah.
very narrow focus.
And
And
even that focus hasn't been particularly accurate. So
no,
that it's a whole area the knowledge has been progressing over the past 15 or 20 years.
yeah,
And I think some people like to just draw a line and go, what we know now is everything there is to know on the
done.
subject.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
this is going to be the rules from now on. Whereas you can't really do that. You have to be open-minded about things. I would
Standstill
say that
science.
standstill science, that's a good way of putting it, actually. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
When there was a report came out called Livestock's Long Shadow back in 2006, And that was
Hmm.
what kicked off all of this. And in fairness to the, I think, German researcher who wrote it, he was assembling the information that was available at the time. And I remember hearing about it and then reading it and going, oh, I see. So cattle are producing all of these emissions. That's really very serious. I suppose that means we're all going to have to consume less meat and dairy in the future because
Hmm.
that's how it seems. I accepted the narrative.
Yeah.
But the more that you actually learn and the more the science progresses,
Yeah.
then your position shifts. You have to be willing to change your mind. So if someone came up with something magical that said, actually, no, cattle really are destroying the planet, then I would change my mind and agree with that.
Yeah.
But there are some people who took hold of that and they still cite basically garbage ideas from
Hmm.
15 years ago
Yeah.
as being as you said, the standstill science, the single truth. They
Yeah.
don't even understand that science is not arriving at one point of view. It's
Yeah.
accepting you have new evidence and
Yeah.
things change
And
and you
you
have to
just have to
change your
look
mind.
at it.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. The whole basic premise of science.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
that's
a
what it's supposed to be
very,
about. I think I
yeah.
would slightly disagree with you just fractionally
Yeah.
because I think money is driving it, but I think the money is heading in one direction. But there are many people, let's say in the NGOs, who do
Yes.
naively believe all this stuff.
This
And
is,
they read
hmm
books by people like George Monbiot and they imagine that he knows what he's talking about. I mean, how are they to know that he doesn't
well,
really? And
mm,
uh, they are quite sincere. And I think it's the people from the NGOs who get sent into the retailers. And
yeah.
this does happen. So they go into the retailers and they browbeat the retailers to sign up to Agenda 2030 goals or to
Yeah.
make an announcement. This happens a lot in the Netherlands and in Germany. I
Hmm.
think it might happen in the UK, but we don't have any evidence for it. So
Right.
you'll hear a supermarket announcing, "Oh, we're going to increase the percentage of plant proteins that we sell from, 10% to 60% by 2030." And
Right.
you think, yeah, I know exactly where that's come from, and I have been told exactly how that
Right.
happens.
Okay.
So what happens then, the idea is that they then put pressure on their suppliers, and they
Uh-huh.
tell their suppliers, you need to be offering us these sorts
Yeah.
of plant proteins or these
X amount.
alternatives.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the difficulty for the supermarkets is they're under massive pressure from governments and lobbyists, NGOs on the one hand. On the
Yeah.
other hand, as they've just discovered, if they put
It's
alternative
money.
proteins in the supermarket, nobody buys them. And they're left
Yeah.
with humongous losses. So, and they actually have shareholders. They're constantly caught
Uh,
between the two things.
uh-huh.
I think, and I'll be very frank, I think a lot of people who run supermarkets they lack personal courage. You don't get to the top of a large corporate organization like that
Yeah.
by being a courageous,
Yeah.
independent
Yeah.
thinker.
Yeah.
So they don't have the capability. What's that great guy called who runs Ryanair?
Oh, Michael O'Leary.
Yeah, none of them
Yeah.
has the capability to be a Michael O'Leary and say,
Yeah.
you are talking bollocks. Right?
Yeah.
And we're
Yeah.
responsible for our customers and suppliers and shareholders. You've got no skin in this game. And
Yeah.
then, if you want to have skin
Get
in the
out.
game, buy the
Yeah.
shares.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so none of them has the
Absolutely.
courage to be like that. And
Yeah.
that's a difference in an entrepreneur and some
We,
corporate guy.
myself and Frederick Leroy,
Yeah. Yeah.
we had a great conversation about that, about the like what's driving it. It's money on one side, but there's also true believers in it as
It's
well.
exactly the phrase. It's a
And
good one. Yeah.
that's a really that opened my eyes a bit because I was like, yeah, I went for it going um like looking at a Bill Gates type and going, this is just money hungry stuff. But then, say George Monbiot and many of the others, I do wonder where their mind is. Are they, you know, are these people always sincere, or are they in on something? Have they invested in something or whatever?
Oh,
But I do think a lot of these people are true believers,
I agree.
and
Yeah.
like you said, they get swept up in the NGOs. There's one Point Reyes in America is a group of farms that are being actively shut down by NGOs. They're really getting attacked by them. And I interviewed Stephanie Arendt, who was on one of those farms, a dairy farm,
Oh, okay.
and really, really pretty aggressive stuff, right?
Yeah.
And now it's coming out, I think, that there's billionaires backing the whole thing, funding the NGOs, the environmental
Mm,
NGOs. There's three of
mm,
them, and when I listened to I looked them up a little bit, And they're very persuasive, and they actually seem very genuine. So it's not like I'm not. I don't think they're actively being bad. It's that they believe in this, and
Yes.
that, and
What it
then
comes down to is a religious impulse. So in the past, in
okay,
Europe, we had Christianity, and people sincerely believed in it. And
yeah,
in the 19th century, George Monbiot would have become a missionary. He'd have gone off to Africa to convert all the natives to the one true
convert the
way.
savages. Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah. And he would
They've tried
have
to do that with
absolutely
Ireland
believed
too.
it. So that,
Yeah,
but then you take organized religion away, and the humans who have that impulse, it's just there in people, it's not in everyone, but it's in some people.
yeah, yeah,
They want
yeah.
to believe in something, they want to be a good person, they want to work towards what they perceive as being good, and for other people
Hmm.
in particular to see them as being good. So that
Yeah,
impulse has just found a new channel. So before they wanted to save our souls, now they want to save the planet, apparently by
uh-huh.
blaming cows, which itself is kind of weirdly religious, isn't it, really? We're going to
Yeah,
we're going
yeah,
to take
yeah.
these cows, these are sacrificial cows.
Sacrifice the cows.
They can sacrifice them, and then the gods will be pleased. And
Yeah,
I
yeah,
found
yeah,
when you
yeah.
talk to people like that and you
And
present
by
them
the gods, you
information,
mean Bill Gates and whoever
yeah,
else.
for example, yeah, that would be one. That would
Yeah,
be one. A good choice.
yeah,
But
yeah,
you talk to someone like that and you present them with facts and information, and you can see the eyes absolutely glazing over.
yeah, yeah.
And someone said to me, "No, I want to eat meat, but I want to make a sustainable choice." I said, "Great." Said,
Yeah.
"Well, in that case, buy British or Irish grass-fed beef or lamb." And here's some information about it. And I said, and there's actually some farms work to high standards. I said,
Yeah.
and you can buy their stuff by mail order if you don't want to go to a supermarket. But actually, if you go to persons in the UK, Waitrose or Marks and Spencer's, and you look for these sorts of product, you're getting the most sustainable thing. And the
Right.
look of complete disbelief. So then I
Yeah.
decided just to complete the horrifying them,
To ring
and I
it in.
produced one of my favorite pictures, which is I don't know if you know this the Sea of Plastic in Almeria in Spain.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yep, huge acreage, enormous acreage of giant polytunnels producing Europe's cheap salad, vegetables, and all sorts of things. Excuse me, I'm going to
Hmm.
cough again.
Nice.
And it's an eco disaster.
Right.
It's a disaster for any sense of biodiversity there. That's not possible because you've got
Yeah.
plastic everywhere,
Yeah.
and lots of chemicals are used. I know someone who's an agronomist who worked there doing some work for some of the growers, and he said he just got sick. He said there's so many pesticides washing
Right.
about there.
Yeah. And I bet you
Said
they're
that
not wearing enough masks or anything.
no,
Like the
they
workers get
import a
really
lot of the
hurt.
workers from Morocco and
Yeah. Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
ask questions.
Yeah.
So and then I said, "Do you think this is more sustainable? Eating plants is more sustainable? This is how most of them are produced." Actually, I said, "This is the biggest one,
Mm.
but the polytunnel and lots of things that go with that." And just silence fell because
Yeah.
someone's presented with something which clashes with their belief system. So then you let them
Yeah.
carry on with their belief system. That's
Yeah.
what they want to do. Yeah.
Do you know what I think? Um, I had a few free classes when I went back to do my master's in sustainable environments. And originally, this sounds like I'm making it up, but I had thought about going into psychology. So we were informed we had 6 free classes of therapy that you could avail of if you were doing your master's through the year. And I took it on, realized I probably needed to work on plenty of stuff while I was chatting to this therapist. I thought I'll go in, I might talk to her about the potential of working in that field. And but we had kind of a dry run. I went in like kind of standoffish, going, I don't need therapy, but I'm really interested in it. Um, but what I noticed was getting to the hard truths of something that you have locked in your mind in one way,
Mm.
and then somebody asking you a question, you get squirmish going, hold on, why do I believe that? Oh, because of this in my childhood or this influence along the way. But it's a bit of a painful thing. And it's like going into therapy. If you have a strong dogma about something, but someone presents you with other facts, then you go, ow, ow, ow. So you doing that do you follow what I mean?
Yeah, I
Like
do.
you just go, oh, God damn it. Because then there's probably a feeling of pride that's hurt. You want to believe that you're smart enough to have seen through the nonsense, and say with Cowspiracy, that came out,
Mm.
and the whole idea was we once upon a time thought this, but now we're exposing it, and this is the conspiracy behind the whole thing, and now you know. But by
Mm.
the way, this is mainstream and it's powered by huge industry. And now we've spun your head in such a direction that you think you've unlocked the true secret of what's going on, but in
Mm.
fact, it spun you in a further route down more uh, strange paths that are not sincere, you know?
Mm. Mm.
So trying to speak to someone who has fed into the conspiracy thing strongly and going, now we've uncovered the conspiracy now, it's cows.
Okay.
You have to, it's like you have to do two UEs to get back to just normal
Yeah.
and then go forward.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm sure you've had very interesting conversations about all of this. Um, and the true believer thing links in with Monbeo, George Monbeo. Um, and have you ever heard of Simon Fairley?
No.
The He's like the old school ecological greens, the movements that you know less chemicals, animals on the land.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
He farms with animals, and he's quite critical of Mombeo's works or suggestions. And this is one thing he said, like this is what I think he took it out of his book, but this is kind of the aggression that he's noting. The crime he alleges is not industrial agriculture, but agriculture itself.
Mm.
Farming, whether intensive or extensive, is the world's major cause of ecological destruction,
Mm.
overheating the world's atmosphere and oceans through, overheating the world's atmosphere and oceans through fossil fuel apparently comes second. But of course, even Michael Mann, the climate scientist, has said that um, emissions from cows are 6%. And overall, it's about, I don't know, 12% of emissions globally for
It's
agriculture.
agriculture. Yeah. We do have to
So,
do this funny thing called eating or we die.
yes,
So
exactly.
it's the bit that I have
Can
to
we
think
take a
about.
hit there at least
Yeah.
if we're doing anything?
And the interesting thing is the focus on cattle, and it's all about reducing cattle in the West. I
Yes.
was actually at a dairy industry thing recently, and the chief executive of one of the biggest dairy companies in Africa said there are
Yeah.
more cows in Uganda and Kenya than there are in Europe and the United States put together. He said that's
Yeah.
because it's an important part of the culture,
Uh-huh.
and these are all small people who've got one or two cattle. He said,
Yeah.
how are they, what are you going to do? Kill their cattle?
Subsistence. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
then and
Yeah.
then they're
Yeah.
all going to starve. So I think so often the thinking about supposedly sustainability in livestock focuses on the West and ignores the reality, which is in the scheme of things, often the West doesn't matter much at all. What
Right.
one thing that always amuses me is people say, if you want to avoid deforestation in Brazil,
Uh-huh.
then you mustn't eat beef. And you're like, well, beef from Brazil, you mean? And they go, oh no, the beef here,
Yeah.
it's all fed on soy. Well, actually, I think
Yeah.
most of the soy, it goes to monogastrics. It goes to feed chickens and pigs.
Oh, thank
And
you. Thank you. This is what I'm always banging on about with the
you
lads
know,
down at the pub with a pint in front of me. Yeah.
that's it.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
I envy you.
Yeah.
That sounds like an enjoyable conversation. If you ever want someone to come along and join,
Hell
talk
yeah.
nonsense.
Come over.
So most is going to monogastrics. And Brazil is the world's second biggest soybean producer. And
Mhm.
of course, okay, so you don't want the soybeans fed to animals. Why are you telling me? Why aren't you standing outside the Chinese embassy or
Mhm.
protesting in Shanghai? Because 60 to 70% of all Brazil's soybeans from the Amazon basin go to China.
Oh
So
wow.
that's got nothing
Wow.
whatsoever to do with Western consumers. So everyone could give up eating beef, pork, and chicken in the West, and
Yeah.
it would make no difference whatsoever to soybean production. 70% goes to
Okay.
China, and another 20% goes to other Asian countries,
Yeah.
people in countries in North Africa and so on. And no one in
Right.
China cares at all about our opinions about
Wow.
soybeans in Brazil. They're just fine with it. They enjoy eating pork and chicken.
Yeah.
The Chinese government doesn't care. The Brazilian government
Yeah.
doesn't care. And it's the people in the West, we used the phrase virtue signaling before.
Uh-huh.
So they can make a lot of noise about something without bothering to find out what the facts are. Because if you did, you'd find out they're actually we're of no importance whatsoever. We're completely trivial in the big picture
Yeah,
of things.
interesting.
And then people say, but all the beef that's produced in Brazil, okay, 65% of that is consumed in Brazil by Brazilians. And they
Oh,
go, well, what
really?
about the stuff that's exported to Europe? Well, it is a bit, but
Yeah,
actually, about 20% of it goes to China. That's the biggest
yeah,
market after
yeah,
Brazil.
yeah. They're
So
very favorable tariffs as well, right? With them to, it's
yes,
easier
that's
for them
right.
to trade.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And
yeah.
the EU, I believe, is trying to set up a tariff deal with South America. And I don't know the details on this one, but
The
you can imagine if
Mercosur.
yeah, they reduce
Yeah,
the
yeah,
tariffs
yeah,
on beef coming in from Brazil.
yeah.
Well, that means we're going to have beef that is arguably produced in a less sustainable manner,
Oh,
being
yeah,
marketed as something
yeah,
cheaper than beef that's produced in Britain or Ireland to a
yeah.
very high standard and is grass-fed.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how's that a good thing exactly? How does that
Yes,
align with their sustainability goals? So, but most
right.
people, they, and in fairness to them, people pick up all this stuff from the media. They pick it up from books by people like George Monbiot or
Yeah,
reading things like The Guardian, which is some comical little thing that I think hardly anyone reads,
yeah,
but
yeah,
is
yeah.
like, it's
Well,
any article that's on that, anything to do with farming and livestock, I generally have to stop halfway through and take a deep breath and force myself to read the rest of it
out
because
of
it's
joy, out of joy.
utter
Yeah.
joy with what I read. It's right. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, listen to this. Um, so Simon Fairley, who is outspoken about just critically about it, like, it's not about being nasty or anything. It's about just kind of looking at these things critically. So Mombeo is a big proponent of precision fermentation, the thing we just talked about that's very scalable, economically viable,
It
and
is.
not damaging to the planet or anything.
And will produce foods that are absolutely identical to what we get from nature.
Yeah, yeah,
That's
exactly.
exactly right. Yeah.
Don't ask any more
He
questions.
knows.
Don't. And he has this statement: the culprit is every farmer, big or small, chemical or organic, with the exception of Ian Tulhurst, who's the veganic, um,
Okay.
vegan. Sorry, without chemicals. So veganic is vegan food without chemicals, like organic. But I remember looking at that. He went to his farm, and he basically said it's not scalable. And Ian Tulhurst said it's not scalable, and so which is interesting, like, because he was like, yeah, we survive, but Ian Tulhurst sounds spot on. Like, I have no problem with anyone
No, he's
being
got his own
vegan
way
or
of doing things. If it works, that's fine.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And I mean, if you wanted to be constructive about it, you could say, well, maybe it's not working because the policy isn't in place to help it along to make it financially viable. A lot of
Mm,
things need that to like stabilizers to for a bike to kind of go off, and then the market develops. But I don't. I think he was fairly clear that he said it's not scalable.
okay.
Then Mombeo's thought process is, well, that would be the
Does he
ideal.
have thought processes? I have to say I've never noticed that, but carry on.
That's a silly assumption on my behalf.
Yeah.
But
I used to think
he,
he did, but the more I read of his stuff, the more I
yeah,
began to doubt it.
yeah,
I could
yeah,
be
yeah,
completely wrong, of course, and he may
yeah,
actually be a giant intellectually, and I'm just a dwarf. But let's carry on. Sorry to interrupt.
yeah. Always stay humble, Julian. You might not.
Absolutely. What do I know? I
But
know nothing.
he says a farm-free world is what Mombeo hopes to see, where everyone enjoys farm-free food. We can now contemplate the end of most farming. This is his quote. We can now contemplate the end of most farming, the most destructive force ever to have been unleashed by humans.
It's just
To
extraordinary.
this end,
How have we survived for this,
yeah, yeah,
tens of
yeah.
thousands of years?
Oh,
What
the
idiots we are.
evolution, the
Yeah.
evolution. To this end, he visits the Solar Foods Laboratory in Finland, where scientists are developing a high protein foodstuff made from bacteria fed on hydrogen. He
Yeah. It's
eats
on
a
the market
pan.
in Singapore at the moment. Yeah.
Oh, really? Wow,
To
must
make
be
ice
taken out.
cream.
We should invest, Julian. Um, he eats a pancake made from the substance that he believes represents the beginning of the end of most agriculture.
Mm.
Um, yeah, I wanted to say that that this is like the stance he has, and it's so against traditional farming or basically all this.
or even understanding of how you make things. Because if you take fermentation, that the microbes have to ferment in a substance, and what's often
Yeah.
used as the fermentation medium is derived from cane sugar. It's one of the biggest sources of the fermentation, the glucose.
Uh-huh.
The bugs have to live on glucose. So that means we have to grow
The bugs.
sugarcane. Yes,
Did you
because
say
it's
bugs?
it's if fermentation, it's
Yeah.
fermenting the microbes to
Oh, so,
make the protein.
oh, that sounds
In
lovely.
very simple terms, any
Yeah,
scientist would be
yeah,
horrified by what I just said, but that's
yeah,
in very
yeah.
simple terms. So, but the microbes have to grow inside like a big stainless steel fermentation tank, and they need some food. So you give them some glucose, but one
Right,
of the biggest sources is for glucose, of course, is from commercial sugarcane.
right.
So Monbiot's world is only possible if we grow even bigger amounts of commercial sugarcane than we grow at the moment. Sugarcane is a rather fossil fuel intensive and
Right.
what's it, pesticide intensive crop.
Is it a
So,
GMO thing?
no, you can just use normal sugarcane
Okay,
for it.
okay.
But the thing is, that shows how little he understands. If farming's going to disappear, where are they going to get the growing medium for the bugs in the tanks that are going to grow and make the protein? Because you have to grow a lot
Yeah.
of sugarcane, and you can grow lots of sugarcane, but you'll absolutely destroy any biodiversity in doing that. You'll use a lot of fossil fuel. So it would be great for him to set out his maths so he could show precisely how that was an improvement. But that's
Yes.
not going to happen because he doesn't trouble himself with saying, here's option A and option B, let's work them out in detail.
Yeah.
It
Yeah,
leaps
yeah.
to an assumption. And that assumption that will grow everything in tanks is, were it not such a dangerous assumption, would be quite comical because it reveals the person hasn't got a clue
Mm-hmm.
what they're talking about at all. In
Yeah.
fact, what they're close to is who was the guy in the Soviet Union? Lysenko or Lyshenko?
Trofim Mazenko, yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
this is the same line of thinking as that famous Russian agricultural scientist and all his friends imposing collective farming,
Yeah.
which was such a success that 6 million people died of starvation in Ukraine alone. You know,
It
it's
was
that
worth a
level of
try.
thinking.
It was
It
worth a
was. Well,
try,
it was a
was it not?
utopian vision, you know.
Yeah.
And we learned in the 20th century that all utopian visions are just fantastic. You know, it doesn't matter which
Yeah.
utopian
Yeah,
vision,
yeah.
they're all great.
You just gotta
And
go
because
for it, man.
yeah, well, you know, you apparently you have to break eggs to make omelets.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
I think, you know, treating our fellow humans as eggs to be broken. I mean,
The
you know, that's never been a bad thing, has it, in history?
Professor Frederick Leroy talked about that
Oh,
the
did he? What does
concept
he say?
of long-termism, where
Ah,
basically for the future vision, you have to break the couple of eggs to make the omelet. So treating us poorly in the meantime to get to the
mm,
vision of the good thing in the future is
mm,
fine. But
mm.
that's why you have to think long term about this stuff, Julian.
Absolutely,
You
you got
know,
it.
we're just in the way. We're
Yeah,
just normal people in the
just
way. But
just
think about how
little
great things will be.
unimportant little people in the way is what I
Yeah.
think now. I mean, that long-termism that he refers to, I think, I gather that's really taken strong hold among the sort of Silicon Valley world and the tech bros.
Yes.
And the
Yeah, yeah.
difficulty is with Silicon Valley world, it's in California. And I think the problem is when you actually get up close to these people, you discover that their education has been absolutely negligible. So
Hmm.
none of them really understands anything about human history, human motivation, economics. They understand nothing. So they see
Yeah.
everything through the lens of their technology fixes and solves everything
Yeah.
view,
Yeah, yeah,
and they
yeah.
have no information that would enable them to look more widely or in a more nuanced way. So
Yes.
you have these people who have lots of money, but they have no information.
Yeah.
Their whole education has been to do with tech, maybe a bit of business stuff, and consequently, they're not capable at all of making any kind of rational decision to do with fellow humans or how an economy works
Yeah.
or anything at all. I mean,
Yeah.
it's literally idiocracy. You know
It
that
is.
movie
Oh, I
is
love
it?
it. Yeah.
Yeah. And some of the
Yeah. Or
biggest
the
idiots
start.
on this
Yeah.
planet have been to universities, have
Yeah.
degrees. I mean, I
Yeah.
went
That's
to
me
university.
too.
I have a,
Yeah.
yeah, me
Yeah.
too. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we even have a no PhD policy in the company now. So we used to employ some
Oh,
people with PhDs, but what we
right.
learned was you should never employ. You'd be super careful about employing people with
Uh,
PhDs because they tend to assume that they're clever just because they have a PhD,
yes. Yeah.
which
Yeah.
frankly is as silly as
Because
assuming
they
you're
sat and
clever.
did their chores.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And they're not team players. and their minds are closed.
Mm-hmm.
They've made the decision about what's right and they know best. So
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
I'm much more in favor of you draw
Good
information
point.
from as wide a variety of sources and people
Yes.
as possible, and then
Yeah.
it's up to you to try and distill it somehow and
Yeah.
try and make
It's
sense of it.
actually the antithesis is the PhD person, or the route, because like I thought about doing, I got offered two funded PhDs
Uh-huh.
in university, and then I was pursuing the possibility of doing my own, and um, one of the things you do is you narrow very focusedly on one little thing of the like, if you look at, or sorry, the majority of them,
Ah, yes.
look at the
You go down the
tree of
silo,
knowledge,
the
yeah,
funnel into this tiny little point
yeah,
here,
and
which is the point of
you're
your
trying to get
PhD.
out
Yeah.
to the very furthest, and then you do a little branch, and
Yeah.
that's the whole idea of it. But
Yeah.
with that comes kind of a complete siloed
Yeah.
effect where you're just literally disregarding all the other stuff, and realistically all of these things actually need to be interdisciplinary, like by
Absolutely.
from the outset you can't
Yeah.
look at one thing narrowly.
Yeah.
So I'm delighted that I didn't go down that route. I really
Congratulations. You
strongly
save time and
consider,
money. Yeah. I would
yeah,
rather
and
talk to a
stress,
farmer to solve a problem
hell yeah,
than most PhDs. Now, having said that, there
yeah,
are some useful ones. Chemical engineers, people like that. Yeah, that's good
yeah,
stuff.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
One or
yeah,
two nutrition scientists.
yeah.
And yeah, because the thing like a farmer every day, and this is true of many jobs, he has to think
Yeah,
about weather and
yeah,
climate. He has to think about soil.
oh
He has to
yeah,
think about the geology and the shape of the land. He has to think
mm-hmm,
about animal health.
yep,
There's a huge array of complex things they have to deal with. It's the
yeah,
opposite of that narrow, siloed way of thinking.
right,
And I think, the
yeah,
difficulty is in everything to do with sustainability or food production
yeah,
that people are allowed to or somehow become the voice
yeah.
and have state opinions about how everyone else should change based on their extraordinarily narrow bit of knowledge and
Yes,
their
yeah,
credentials. I went
yeah.
to a
What's
university that's supposed to give people great credentials. I went to Oxford. I have to
mhm.
tell you, I would actually change the law now to ban anyone from Oxford for ever holding public office or being a politician. Because if I look at, say, the UK for the past 25 years,
Yeah.
every single one of them has either been incompetent, dangerous, or both. And that's all
I
political
love it.
parties.
I
It's not
love it.
just one of them. The
Yeah,
whole
yeah,
lot.
yeah. I
They
think
need to be
these are the
banned.
same. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Damn, damn. I'm probably business people in, the original thing of or the father of capitalism. Drawing a blank now. He wrote The Wealth of Nations.
Oh, you mean
Um,
yes,
Adam Smith.
Adam
Adam Smith.
Smith, great
Yeah.
Scottish thinker,
Yeah,
genius.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. Oh, he was. And I mean, if you look at the original concept of what he was talking about, like it's been manipulated and cherry picked by the neoliberal free market
yes,
types that
yeah.
they go, this is what Adam Smith said, and this is what Adam Smith said, and this, and then puts it together, and ignores the his moral and ethical
Yeah,
stance on things, and he
yeah,
warned so specifically: do not let businessmen near political positions of power, because they have their vested interests, they have their businesses that they want to
yeah,
rise, they have their cronies, they have their everything, and basically. The exact opposite of what's happening in America, which is unregulated capitalism, essentially. Um, who's business billionaires in power, up high in these positions. You're
mm,
like, you're definitely come to the table with a bias on what industries you want to raise and which ones you want to
it's unavoidable
smash
because
the
it's their
competition.
job to try and do
Yeah,
that. And yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So how did we get onto Adam Smith there?
I don't know, but it was always good to bring up Adam Smith because he's
Yeah,
is
right.
a
Could,
great writer. I can't. I'm going to quote this really badly, but the thing about there was never any occasion when merchants and tradesmen got together for entertainment and feasting that the conversation did not talk to how they could defraud the consumer. So it's like,
yeah,
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 basically
yeah,
warning
yeah.
about cartel thinking, the sort of thing you
That's a,
were saying.
sorry, and that's another thing he always said, like, this system, this capitalist structure, the one thing you need to do to stop it failing is keep the wolves at bay. And he warned about the
Yeah.
congregation of these groups, these vested interests. They will come together, look for power, and manipulate the system and unravel things and da 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 da, and exploit. Yeah,
Mm.
so on the one side, the competition is great. And I'm basing the book on self interest, right? It's a bit of a cheeky tone to it,
Okay.
sustainability for
Good
sinners,
for you.
non
No, I
judgmental.
like the name. It's a good name.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you
Yeah.
very much.
We need a bit
Um,
more humor and levity brought into
Oh,
this
oh,
subject.
by the way, Julian, that's one thing that I've done lately is I've consciously made the decision, excuse the French now, but fuck this. I'm gonna have fun with this too.
Good.
Because
You
because
should.
there's too much doom and gloom. And if we realized how quickly we could shift things around, if we all
Mm.
came together on the things we agree on, there's a
Mm.
lot of power with the people, loads. So I'm not giving hope. And I'm gonna have a lot of fun doing all this stuff. And I really like even talking to you about this. It just I get energetic about it.
Good.
It's exciting because
Me
that
too.
means that other people's minds have gone there too, with like even Adam Smith and all of these things. So, and it's also a reassurance for me that I'm not completely out of my mind with this. And I refuse to speak in absolutes because there are multiple.
Mm.
I've been humbled sincerely many a times by thinking one thing and then learning a bit more and then changing my
Mm.
mind.
I know exactly what you mean.
So
Story of my
I
life.
yeah, yeah, right. Oh
Damn, I
my
was
God.
wrong. Just
Yeah,
checked
yeah,
your
yeah.
mind.
Damn it. Thank God no one knows except everyone.
That's right.
Um,
I tried to keep that mistake small, and not let
yeah,
people know
yeah,
about it.
yeah.
I know exactly what you mean, and it's a good experience to have things that cause you to change your mind and to know what
Yeah,
your limitations are. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
And I mean, like we talked about the journey of like I was vegetarian 20 years.
Mm,
And my mother had a health food shop, an organic health food shop, and my father studied horticulture, so the environmental thing was in the background all the time. And now I eat meat and I work on a suckler beef farm with my uncle. And I realized that I was subjected to the propaganda, and I think I was. I just read something lately where I was like, damn it, I did believe the almighty big meat industry and dairy industry could be really up to bad mischief because that's what you read in all these
yeah.
um, environmental publications and everything. You wouldn't even
And a lot
dare
of
to
journalism
dream.
has said that over the past 10 years
Yeah,
without anything
yeah,
to back it up. Yeah, yeah,
right. So
yeah.
so um, yeah, like I understand how people can get to that thinking, like basically being indoctrinated by a certain thing. I could have well been one of those NGO people on the other side had I not figured it out that
Mm,
what's going on.
mm,
So you know what I mean? Like
mm.
so I can't. I'm
It's
not
true.
really judgmental on the people. I just want to like raise awareness that a lot of this stuff is insincere. There's ill intentions behind it, and we
Yes,
need to speak about it and not
yes.
attack each other. And that we, the common people, the regular people of the world, it's us that needs to stick together, because it's the bigger higher ups that are
Yeah.
doing this, and it's
Mm,
basically money and control and power.
mm.
You know?
Well, I think the good news is, from your point of view, is that ordinary people are making a difference. And while they may hear it and absorb it to some extent, it doesn't change their behavior. So what the
Yeah.
big thing that's happened over the past 4 or 5 years, all the plant-based products
Hmm.
failed,
Yeah.
and by failed, I mean, if you're running a business and you still can't make a profit after 10 years, that's what I call a failure, as most bank
Yeah.
managers would. Um, and the consumption of red meat is going up. So we, we
Mm.
we do lots of consumer qualitative and quantitative research. So one of the things we discovered was that let's see, it was about 2021, 22. This small group emerged, mostly male, who said they were consuming more red meat for health and
Hmm.
nutrition.
Hmm.
By 2024, it's up to 9%. This is across every country. This is not just like an American thing. It's true of
Wow.
Spain as well,
Yeah.
and it was 9%.
Wow.
This year, we found it was 16%, and the
Yeah.
split is 60% male, 40% female. Young
Interesting.
women are turning to
Yeah.
red meat for very good hormonal reasons, for
Yes.
vitamins
Yeah.
and iron and so on. And they've managed to do this in the teeth of 40 years of negativity about red meat, from
Yes.
public
Yeah.
health people who amusingly are relying for the advice to cut back on red meat by using what are called nutritional epidemiological studies. They're observational studies that
They're
make
the easiest to be skewed.
well, it's not even to be skewed. It's just the quality of the research is garbage. And
Oh,
if you look at a nutrition science study from the 1990s and you take just the data collection part and you show it to a statistician, one of my colleagues did that. She went and found someone who specialized in statistics for engineering. He was so astonished at the bad data collection. He asked her to come in one lunchtime and give it because they have people coming in and they have a talk at lunchtime or eat their sandwiches
yeah.
and say, this is how they gather data for nutritional epidemiology. And the
Yeah.
engineers were so horrified. One person, I think like a PhD student, was saying a first year student in engineering wouldn't make mistakes like this.
Stop.
And the professor at the end said, if this is how nutrition science is done, I don't think
Yeah.
it should be called science. He said, should
Yeah.
we? It's the nutrition scientists are trained in nutrition epidemiology. I mean, I
Yeah.
suppose there's some bits that are good. Yeah,
Yeah.
for
Yeah. Yeah.
example, they classify lasagna as fresh red meat in their data collection. They
Oh,
classify
wow.
chili con carne as fresh red meat. They
Yeah.
classify a burger with fries as fresh red meat.
Yes.
So their data collection is, there's just no word to describe how anyone could possibly be so naive
Yeah.
and bad at data collection. Um,
Or on
so,
purpose.
I no, I don't think they do it on
No?
purpose. They sincerely believe in what they're doing, and they're not
Oh, yeah.
bribed. They're not. It's not
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
They
Wow.
you have to go along with all of this stuff. It's called food frequency questionnaires. In order to do
Hmm.
your undergraduate degree, then to do your master's, then to do your PhD, you basically have to
Yeah.
sign up
Yeah.
to the norm,
Hmm.
and then they go on just believing it. And because they live in this very narrow silo called a
Yeah.
university department, where you're just not exposed to the real world at all.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, unless it's in something like agriculture or engineering or
Yeah.
something like
Yeah.
that, but mostly not. And they can go on all believing it. And I do love the look of a look of complete horror on the face of an American nutrition epidemiology professor when I told
Hmm.
him that no one can take the dietary guidelines seriously who knows anything about how bad their data collection was. He just looked aghast. Like, who is this monster talking to
Yeah.
him?
Yeah. Yeah.
Obviously, I'm talking complete
God.
rubbish.
Yeah. I can just imagine the faces of like someone like you or Frank Mitloehner or Frederick Leroy just, rhyming off
Yeah.
solid information going,
Mm,
that's why this doesn't work, unfortunately.
mm.
It's a nice
And
idea,
the nutritional
but
epidemiology one is a good one because you're told that that's the stuff that's good science. And that's what I used to believe because I
yeah,
didn't question it either.
yeah.
And then in 2010, the wake up moment happened when the European Food Safety Authority, so you have to petition them to make a health claim about a product. And they
Hmm.
announced they were not going to accept any studies that were based on this method, nutritional epidemiology, because the
Yeah,
quality was too low. And I thought, how can this be? This is what universities do. And there
yeah.
was an uproar about it. And it was only then that I started to look into it and ask questions that I found out that they
Right.
rejected it for very good reasons, which is that it
Yeah.
isn't really science. It's some sort of pleasant observations, which might merit
Mm.
some looking into further. Um,
It's
yeah, how did we
making
get
me.
onto that subject? I
Is
apologize.
it?
I
Well, no,
distracted
no,
us
no,
with one of
no,
my
no,
hobby
no.
horses.
This is really what I wanted to talk to you about one thing, and it's a very personal example. Um, wait, corn. Have you ever
Oh,
heard of
yes.
corn? Yeah.
Yes, I've been to their factory. That was 20 odd years ago. Yeah.
Uh-huh. See, I told you I was vegetarian for 20 years growing up,
Yes.
and I've consumed a lot of corn and protein
Oh,
alternatives, and
okay.
I just thought of it
And
actually.
how do you feel?
Julian, wait till you hear. I have a really strong thing here. But I actually, while I was in the shower this morning, I was like, I thought I didn't know how fun it would be to talk to you, so I didn't know if I'd be able to joke about it. But I wanted to talk about my corn addiction.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, as in,
You're on safe ground. You can share
yeah, yeah,
whatever
yeah.
dietary
Well, you
habits
do
you've
know
got,
the play
and
on
I will
words
not
there, right?
judge.
Did you hear
Yeah.
that?
Yeah.
The corn, yeah, it doesn't matter. But so I'm gonna read you out something. Um, and I already taught, like, I actually, um, yeah, I think I think I need to read this. So my partner at the time was sick from food, from what we narrowed it down to was corn vegan pieces, not the regular corn, but corn vegan pieces. So
Okay.
much so that I actually sent them an email.
Okay.
So I'm going to read you out the email,
Sure.
and I'm just going to, yeah, I've tiny writing. Um, so the reason for contact, to whom it may concern, my partner and I have recently discovered that these chicken pieces have been causing my partner extreme bouts of stomach cramps. She has described these cramps as some of the worst pain she has ever experienced, and they last throughout a whole night directly after eating the product. Last night, for instance, she could not get off the bathroom floor for close to 2 hours,
Mhm.
almost fainting every time she tried to get up. She didn't even have the energy to call out for help. It's been a whole 9 hours of cramps and crying. So she was in
Wow.
the bathroom crying and she couldn't reach out to me. That's how bad that was. She's completely beside herself as we speak. I'm writing this with the knowledge that corn may have adverse reactions for some people, but I think it should be labeled more clearly somehow. So I was pissed off at this
Mm.
thinking, right? Um, or put it on your website in more detailed way than what is covered in the intolerance section. Because I looked it up, I was like, it's nothing proper here for me to get some kind of ample warning. I really consider what is written there to be insufficient. I am all for vegetarian and vegan products coming into the mainstream and encourage them. And I realize what you are up against with disinformation campaigns. So, are you seeing where my mind went since?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, that is why I'm writing to you directly and not posting this on Reddit or any other social media platform. And I have in brackets, or at least not yet. Like, how funny. So then I've been eating corn on and off since my childhood, and that is why it suddenly clicked that I had similar excruciating cramps from the ages between 5 and 12. They would come and go and were completely unexplainable at the time, with many visits to the doctor, nutritionists, and alternative practitioners, etc. And no one could ever find a reason why. Now, after seeing my partner squirm in agony and crying for whole nights through, it became clear that this was exactly the same type of reaction I was having in my childhood. This has clearly caused a lot of pain and mental stress, never mind the costs. Ultimately, I just want to flag this and give you feedback as a consumer. If there are any changes that could be made to the recipe or have recently been made to the recipe, then this will add to your case of whether or not changes to your product should be made. Again, I do not find the part on intolerance sufficient, nor on the product, as in the product casing, or the labeling on the packaging. Had it been the case, it may have spared my partner and maybe even me during my childhood a whole lot of pain and stress. Thank you. I right. So that was that. And look, I can go through all the. It was 200 grams. It was on the best before date was the February 2023. I had the batch ID is 571126B. Timestamp 036, right? I'm just legitimizing that this was a thing that I sent in. And I thought I worded it in the fairest way possible, like giving them the benefit of the doubt and giving them the heads up that if there was an alteration to it or whatever is going on, maybe these complaints will help suss something out. So friendly enough, they respond and hi Chris, we're really sorry to hear about your partner that they've been unwell and hope they're feeling better. Our top priority is always food quality and safety, and so it's genuinely concerning to hear about your experience. They were nice. Look, it's fine. Um, they'd like to understand more about the experience and everything. And then what, like, this is such a long time ago that I'd forgotten it, but it just popped into my head before our interview. Like, let's look this up. And the last email that I got or that I sent then was, "Hi Robert, many thanks for your reply and well wishes." See, it's not aggressive. This whole
Hmm.
communication.
Hmm.
I have forwarded this email on to my partner, so hopefully she will get the chance to fill out the questionnaire sometime soon. Otherwise, I think my email has covered the main bases. Nothing abnormal on how the food was cooked, just some vegetables and rice, which we eat regularly. This is the third and final occurrence. I said in final in brackets, like we're not doing this again. We're not even taking a chance where these cramps might have occurred, and we are certain it was the corn pieces I referenced. We were completely able to narrow it down. Basically, so there was no other things we
Dietary
ate that
changes.
could have
Yeah.
possibly done it.
Okay.
Everything else was the regular food we eat, and it was literally this. And I mean, fair enough, we could both have this random shot of we're both allergic to this stuff. Um, but what made me question it was the vegan pieces because vegan kind of for me now what I understand it is you don't even use animal manure. So
Mm.
it's going to be synthetic. Some parts are going to be synthetic if you need to use fertilizer for
Hmm.
things. And I would be wondering what what is in that, and um, do I have reason for concern? Because like yeah, it was traumatic for her,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
screaming out in pain and not even
Yeah.
being able to like get a hold of anyone in the house, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
then me, like all of these issues, growing up between the age of 5 to 12, that were I remember the exact same feeling of being on the ground squirming, you know,
Mm.
and I really like the stuff. So
Mm.
I'm like all of that makes your mind go, what are we eating? And I'm not taking
Mm.
a stab at corn in particular. It just makes you critically think about all of this stuff. What's in our food, and do we trust it enough? And are we going too far away from what's natural and too close to too much synthetic stuff that really could be hurting us
Mm.
from the human health perspective? Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, I think, well, I can't possibly comment on corn because I just don't know enough. But
Yeah,
we're
it's
all
not about
individuals.
corn, right?
You know,
In
nutrition is
this,
quite
yeah.
personalized.
Uh-huh.
So, you know, the dietary guidelines are set on the basis that we're all roughly the same, eating the same sort of thing, and that was probably okay 40 years ago. But
Yeah.
we do now know that, you know, each of us has different microbiome, or
Yes.
a different history of what we've consumed. So, you know, we all have different reactions to things that make some of us prosper and not so effective for other people.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
you know, that's an important part, I think, of understanding any change in the future is making sure that people making sure that things work in people's bodies in the way that
Mm-hmm.
we think they should.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and respecting that personalized choice for sure.
That's it. Because we're as different on the outside as we are on the inside, kind of thing.
It's very true. Yeah.
And everyone has their different allergies and everything. Um, and yeah, I would like people, whatever diet they choose, to just also, whatever they're putting in their mouth, make sure that you're critically looking at how you're feeling with
Mm.
it.
Mm.
Because um, I think a lot of people might be going down a certain route based on promises that it's good for the environment or it's healthier, it's about animal welfare. Um, and they might be doing themselves a lot of damage because
Yeah.
they're believing stuff that mightn't even have scientific backing. I think that's something you said actually, something about the kind of empty promises. A lot of these things, you know, that
Mm.
there's no scientific backing behind it to go, oh, like yeah, here's the science to show that this is healthy and whatever,
Or that
but
it's
there's
sustainable. You've
yeah,
probably
or
heard
it's
of
sustainable.
the oat
Yeah.
milk brand called Oatly.
Yeah,
Um,
I wanted to talk to you about it because of the
sure.
Impossible and Beyond and the share
Okay.
prices going down.
Yep.
Yeah,
Oatly is another one. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Oatly
yeah.
hasn't made a profit in 10 years. It used to be a small, profitable Swedish company, and now it's become a
Yes,
very large, massively loss-making multinational,
yeah,
which is a stroke of genius. And yeah, they've got losses of 1.3 billion sitting on their balance sheets. Their shareholders will never see that again. And it's a
yeah.
funny thing because it was a I met the person who invented it, incredibly, one of the Oster brothers.
Okay.
Um, who's a chemistry professor in Sweden. So
Ah,
what they did was they took enzymes and they used them to break down the oats to make the smooth, drinkable things. You
right.
can't get it unless you use enzymes, really, unless someone's come up with a change. And that's all fine, except if you look at what it does to your blood sugar. So unfortunately, what you're basically you're creating a refined grain. So and it's so all the
Mm-hmm.
starches are released into your blood sugar quite quickly. So if you map
Wow.
someone's blood sugar response for say oat milk, it's a massive spike like this,
Oh God.
compared to say full fat milk, which is much less.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
there's no harm in that by itself. But you can imagine if your diet is full of things that are making your blood sugar spike all the time,
Yeah.
and your body's not consuming that blood sugar, it's going to lay it down somewhere as fat in cells, effectively.
Okay.
Yeah. And so
Yeah.
a lot of modern diets are like that. I'm not picking on Oatly
Yeah.
specifically.
Yeah.
And that I think is kind of the next area of understanding that needs to be developed is to enable people to think about, what's the effect on their insulin resistance, on their blood
Yes.
glucose from
Yeah.
diets.
Yeah.
And if you're
Yeah.
eating simple, straightforward foods like beef or cabbage, or
Yeah.
so just like you to cook some
Yeah.
cabbage
Yeah.
yourself at home, that's fine. But anything that you get into that's been processed and uses, refined starches, it's kind
Yeah.
of
Uh-huh.
opening up a problem. And it
Yeah.
makes me laugh when you see the advice that's given to people who are pre-diabetics from the dietitians about what their diet should be.
Yeah.
And it's almost like this is advice that's designed to make people move from pre-diabetic to actually diabetic.
Full on. Yeah.
Absolutely, because it's all
Yeah.
all foods that will cause the blood glucose to elevate, not
Yeah.
just once, but repeatedly over a period of time.
Yeah.
So I think um, there's an opportunity for a lot of people to be helped and have a better life by understanding that there's a lot of
Yeah.
things out there that it'd just be good not to avoid totally, but just to dramatically cut back on and try and stick to the
In
simple things.
moderation. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
bit of beef,
Yeah.
bit of cabbage,
Yeah.
an apple, that'll do.
Jane
Yes,
Buxton, great plant-based
it's
con.
an excellent book. Yeah,
Yeah, you're in it. You're in it.
that's
Um,
not why it's excellent, but it's one of the reasons.
I love it. She said she has she documents a doctor or multiple doctors talking about um, that who treat patients with diabetes,
Mhm.
and again, I'm not talking
Is it
about
Dr. David Unwin and the
that sounds
yeah,
similar to.
he's
I'd love to
he's
know where
been
it is in one of those, but I'm not going to
okay.
search it. Sorry, I cut you off
No,
there.
no, not at all. I cut you off. Carry on.
Um, yeah.
So she
Oh
talks
yeah,
about a
sorry.
doctor who do
So
people with diabetes. Yeah.
yeah, and they say like I literally can't consult with someone or provide advice if they're strictly following a vegan or plant-based diet because all of that together, it's huge, massive amounts of carbohydrates,
Mm.
and that's sugar translates into in our body. And he or she was saying like there's that's literally the worst advice I could give anyone is if you have the rigid structure of the vegan plant-based diet,
Hmm.
then there's nowhere you can turn to get adequate supplies of protein and subdue the intake of carbohydrates. So you're
Yes.
backed into a corner.
Yeah.
Um, and that's why they say they can't promote a plant-based diet because they think it will inevitably make diabetes worse or the condition worse. Um,
I think that's a good point. I think that's
yeah,
probably for some people is a very, very real issue. Yeah. Yeah,
yeah,
and you mentioned protein just there. That's one of the interesting things is the focus on getting around to consume more plant protein ignores the fact that proteins come at are different types and have different qualities.
hmm,
In other words, what's your body's ability to absorb them and use them? So
yes,
the highest quality protein on the planet, using the United Nations recommended measure, which is called the DS scale, is
yeah,
dairy protein. Dairy protein is fabulously bioavailable. And
uh-huh,
if you have it in your diet, as part of a meal, it'll help reduce your glucose spikes. And
right,
another
yeah,
meat, red meat, is
yeah,
also a very high quality protein. Soy is the only plant protein that's high quality. Most plant proteins are
uh-huh,
low quality. So if you eat them, you're not going to get as much, you're not going to get the value out of 10 grams of chickpeas that you get out of 10 grams of dairy
Right.
protein. It's as
Yeah.
simple as that.
Mm.
This is actual
Yeah.
measurable scientific effect. It's
Yeah.
not some
The
piece of speculation.
bioavailability kind of thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think that a lot of people have been misled into
Hmm.
thinking that, all proteins are the same, which they're most certainly not.
Yeah.
One of the
Yeah.
difficulties is for normal people, if they're going to consume a lot of plant proteins, they normally come with a package of starch. Um,
Starch.
so
Okay.
if you're going to get quite a lot more calories off your 10 grams of plant protein than you would from 10 grams of animal protein,
Uh-huh.
if you think that matters. And that
Yeah.
starch is
Yeah.
going to
Yeah.
be loading into your blood sugar and potentially contributing to one of those spikes, which
Oh.
by itself is okay, but as part of a diet with lots of spikes is
Yeah.
not so clever.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. It's
yeah,
never.
you have to be very thoughtful about which plant proteins you eat. You have to
Yeah.
eat, and it's just a bit too complicated for most people to integrate into their lives, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I get you. And it's, I mean, if you like, I do enjoy a wide array of food now, and I like all sorts of stuff. I shovel all sorts of food in. I'm by no means very disciplined, but one of the points Jane Buxton said when I was speaking to her was like, if you go down a very narrow route of whichever diet you choose, um, you limit the you're reducing your metabolic flexibility because you're not
Hmm.
able to grab at many things. You then expose yourself to the risk of deficiencies because the more variety of foods you get, and if you treat it like let thy food be thy medicine,
Hmm.
you will eventually grab onto whatever you think is missing without really realizing it, but you
Hmm.
run less of a risk of becoming deficient in whatever food or whatever thing. Like in veganism or the plant-based stuff, they say the iron and B12 deficiencies are one of the main things, right? And like, or if you're very selective on the diet you're doing, you and you've less of a choice, then you eat more of one thing or two or three things, and therein lies also a risk because you're overdosing on the one and
Oh yeah.
underdosing on the other.
Okay.
And yeah, I found that very interesting because it made me think of my health journey around vegetarianism and
Yeah.
limiting myself to certain things. Now I go pretty hard on say red meat, um, because I do see it as a multivitamin,
It
and I
is one
and
of the most
I,
nutrient dense foods on the planet. You should eat liver occasionally as well. That is
yeah,
possibly the most nutrient dense. Yeah.
really. And
Yeah.
what type of liver? Where would you get it from?
Lambs
I'm
is
curious.
easiest for your family members to go for. Some people find
Yes,
beef
I'll
liver
just run over
quite.
to the field there and
Okay, there you go.
pop the
So,
lamb.
I
Yeah.
mean, beef liver is very good, but some people aren't so keen on the taste. And the way to cook it
Uh-huh.
is to find yourself a nice French recipe because the
Right.
English-speaking world tends just to fry it and have it with onions, and you end up with a piece of rubber with onions, basically.
Oh
Whereas
yeah,
the
I think I've
French cut it
eaten that.
into
Yeah.
small pieces and they cook it with cream and
Oh,
something like sherry or Calvados.
you're making me hungry
And
right now.
yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
then
yeah,
it gives a completely different experience. And the cream is good for
yeah.
you as well because it's dairy
Great.
fat, and that's good for
Yes,
your heart health.
and it complements the probably the take up if they're cooked together,
Well,
right?
exactly. Yeah, all your fat
Yeah,
soluble vitamins
yeah,
are
yeah,
being pulled
yeah,
up. Yeah. French,
yeah.
basically, if you want to figure out how to do anything sensible in this world to do with food, just look what the French do and do some version of that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I've been impressed by the French with their cuisine since I read Anthony Bourdain's Kitchen Confidential back in
Ah,
the day,
yes.
and it
Yeah.
really it opened my mind to like, oh wow, they are very experimental compared to a lot of the stuff around the world. Um,
Hmm.
yeah, it's fascinating.
Hmm.
Um,
So have we done enough, do you think, Chris?
I think, Julian, would you mind if we had another round sometime because it feels like we could
Sure.
talk a lot
Okay.
sometime down the
Yeah,
line.
that would be fine.
Yeah.
I probably don't have any availability till December now.
That's
This
fine.
is
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
the
yeah,
busiest time
yeah,
of year for us, and then I've got customer commitments in November. Unfortunately,
yeah,
I thought I'd just cruise a bit up to Christmas, but it's not like that. So, but
yeah.
yes, I'd be delighted to do that again sometime. No
Yeah,
problem.
perfect. Yeah, and there's no rush at all. But I appreciate the work you're doing and
Thank you. You're very kind.
the amount of time you spent thinking critically about all of this stuff.
You got to do
It's
something in the shower.
yeah, it's important. It's important work that you're doing.
Thank you.
And
It's very kind.
I wish you all the best with it, and I look forward to the next time we speak.
Okay,
And
very good.
thanks for all your insights.
It's a pleasure, Chris.
Yeah,
And thank you very much. It's been a very enjoyable conversation. I hope the cattle
thanks.
are doing well.
They are doing very well. They're doing very
Okay.
well.